all questions certainly people will be exploring. So for some insight, Barbara Rez is back. She wrote All Alone on the 68th Floor, How One Woman Changed the Face of Construction. Rez was an executive vice president at the Trump Organization, working for Donald Trump for 18 years.
Yeah, well, on and off, yeah.
On and off for 18 years. It's great to have you back.
Thank you.
Let's just run through some of these names. We just talked about Alan Weisselberg, who you overlapped with for a number of years. At the time, he wasn't the big kahuna, so to speak.
No.
He was, what was he
He
serving?
was the guy, well, he came from Brooklyn, and, you know, he did the billing and the paying the bills. I mean, basically those two functions, like a chief accountant. And basically, I think that's what he did at Trump Tower for the when he first moved over there. And he moved over there in the period between '84 and '87 when I was gone. I left and came back. So
anything about him stand out? I mean, obviously the now president must have trusted him enough to give him quite the
you know, well, like I said, he went back to Fred and Brooklyn. He was not in the inner circle at that time, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
He was the kind of guy that would be called into Donald's office and he would say, "Yes, Mr. Trump." You know, that when we walk on, "Yeah, Donald." You know,
he was a Mr. Trump.
He was a Mr. Trump guy, but it looks like that changed.
That changed, and it also changed with Matthew Calamari, who I just also want to ask you about. I mean, all the color on all these different people that you worked with. So this guy Matthew Calamari, who Chris Elizabeth was just talking about, and yes, that is his real name, who you used to call
the Big Squid.
The Big Squid, is now the COO of
Correct.
Trump Org,
Yes.
and this is also a name that we heard from Cohen. And at the time, he was brought in as.
He was working at the Open on like a 4-day...
the U.S. Open.
U.S. Open. Donald was there in the stands, and he saw this big guy come and chase some kids that were sitting in seats they didn't belong in, and pulled them out by the scruff of their neck. And Donald was impressed by that. So we went over to him and got his number, and he came in the next day or the day after and told me, "Call this guy. I want to put him on, you know, on Trump Tower on the staff in charge of security." I said, "Donald, I don't need somebody like that. And, you know, he's not, you know, he just got out of college. Hire him. He's a great guy." So I did. I put him on the staff of the general contractor, and he worked for me, and he did a good job. He rose to the occasion. I mean, you know, he made sure that people were not stealing things to the extent that you can on a construction job.
All goes back to loyalty, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, eventually it does, yeah. And then he ended up being Trump's bodyguard.
And then now?
Well, he went through a few iterations, but now he's COO.
COO. What about... Michael Cohen said nothing happens in Trump world without Trump knowing about it, and he brought some of these checks. Michael Cohen brought some of these checks, right, to the Hill, including checks from the president himself after he had become the president, paying him back for the hush money. And he also said one of the checks was made out in Don Jr.'s name. What do you think of that? And how
you know, I don't know what to make of Don Jr., but as far as Trump paying his own checks, for something important like that, I think even if he said you could sign it, I think they'd want him to sign it just so that they would have his name on it, because that was a big deal. But yeah, in Trump world, Trump knew everything. Nothing went on without him. That's why when this meeting in Trump Tower with the Russians came up, they asked me, is it possible that Donald didn't know? I said, no, that's not possible. Everybody reported to Donald, even the highest person, and I don't think Don Jr. was in that, you know, echelon. Cohen
also said that Trump threatened people hundreds of times. Were you ever threatened?
Cohen actually called me right after I wrote an op-ed piece in the Daily News. I had just started out, and it was not a bad piece. It was kind of nice, I mean, actually. He started talking words like defamation and libel, and, you know, I said, gee, Michael, I got to go. I have people here, and I'll call you back.
Michael Cohen was the one doing the threatening.
Yeah, Cohen, yeah. Now, as far as Trump threatening, I mean, you know, the quick funny story is he used to keep a picture of Roy Cohen in his desk drawer, and when we'd have meetings with contractors that wanted to get their final payments, Trump would say, I'm not going to pay you, I'm going to sue you, and here's my lawyer, and he'd bring up. But threatening to sue was a definitely big deal. He threatened to sue everybody.
How about this whole conversation that's been going on over whether or not Donald Trump is racist? Cohen said he is, recalling an incident when Obama was president in which Trump said black people would never vote for him because, quote, they were too stupid. Cohen pointed out that there are no black executives at the Trump Organization. Is Donald, you've known Donald Trump off and on for years and years. What's true?
It's hard for me to say he's racist and then admit that I worked for him for all that time. I mean, it was a different period of time, and words like the M-word were used frequently. They aren't ever used now.
By Donald Trump himself?
Well, I don't remember, to be honest. I won't say that he did because I don't remember. I remember hearing jokes. There were always black jokes going back and forth, and he told them too. You know the expression, once you go black, you never go back? First time in my life I heard it, it was Donald that said it. And in a joking way. So, I mean, there was certainly a lightheartedness about not only black people, but Jews and things like that. But I remember we were picketed by...
So, hang on. I'm just still letting that sit for a second. So no one in the room, when Donald Trump or others would make these inappropriate jokes, would say, sir, not appropriate.
People didn't do it at that time. Everybody joked. And people, I mean, I'm going to be honest about it. People laughed at this was 1981, 82, sure. 83. And that's almost 40 years ago. And people sort of laughed. They laughed at Polish jokes. And by the way, they weren't as mean intended back then. It was more or less kind of like racism was like accepted. It wasn't like, oh, I hate black people. It's just this is the way people are and this is the way we talk.
Which we all know it is never accepted, but you are full of stories
yes,
from all of those years. Barbara Rez with Donald Trump. Wow. Thank you, Barbara Rez, very much.
My pleasure.